Welcome to Forum 360. Thank you for joining us on our Global Outlook with a Local View. This is Leslie Unger, your host today. Anyone that knows me knows that I don't have a musical bone in my body. I may have been the only cheerleader in history who had no sense of rhythm. Yet when I heard and saw our guest today perform, I was enchanted. You can't take your eyes off of him. In a world where people name themselves Notorious and Ludacris and The Stallion, our guest's name is Humble G. de Fiddla. Please join me in hearing Humble's story, hearing his fiddle, and bearing witness to his infectious enthusiasm. We welcome Humble G. de Fiddla to Forum 360. So we welcome you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So I have to ask you, when I think of a fiddler, my introduction to a fiddler was in the movie Fiddler on the Roof, which took place in another century, in another country. What was your introduction to a fiddle?
To fiddle, so my introduction to the fiddle was actually in school. We were living in a middle-class neighborhood, South Euclid, Lyndhurst area. And I was going to a school, I think it was named Greenview. And they brought all the students down to...
Now at this time, did you know you were musical? Did you know you had an interest
No, I was dancing though. Okay. So I was dancing a lot. I was even traveling. I was like a kid dancer. Like I used to love to dance. That was like one of my first loves, was dancing, and I used to love to paint and stuff like that. But when they brought us down, they just showed all the students. It was in the cafeteria, they had all of these tables where they had different instruments. And the first instrument was the drum that I just was very interested in. But I don't always go with my first choice. I said, let me see what else they got going on here. So by the end of it, when they walked us around, there were a few students that were indecisive, and I was a part of that group. So then they took us into a separate room, and they introduced us to the classical string instruments. And that's when we saw the cello, we saw the viola, the upright bass, the harp, and then they showed us the violin last. It's the concert master violin. And I have a quick story about this. And I picked that violin. Unfortunately, my mom had lost both her jobs. She was working 2 jobs at the time. So we moved back into the inner city in Cleveland, Ohio. And we were staying on Prince and 93rd, which I had to go to Nathan Hale. At this time, Nathan Hale didn't have a band, an orchestra. They just had kind of like this, not even a theory class, it was more like a music history class. And we used to get progress reports. I don't know if they still do that, but we were getting progress reports, and I got an F in music. So my mom, she just wasn't having that. So she came up to the school very respectfully and asked the teacher, how would you give my son an F? You must not be paying attention to your students, because he loves music. And he kind of generalized me like, well, you know, he's clowning with all the kids. And the kids were like, no, he doesn't clown. You know, they looked at me, I was kind of quiet and shy. We don't even talk to him like that. So she said, well, test him now, ask him anything. And so she gave me the chalk, and he started calling out these different notes for me to draw in treble clef. So he called eighth notes, quarter notes, whole notes, 16th notes, and I was drawing them. And he just wouldn't give. He's like, well, he could have went home and practiced for this, you know, just to make you think that he's doing well in the class. So he just wouldn't budge. The next week they had a show and tell where they asked us to bring in something that we do that most people don't know we do, so we can show them and tell them about it. So my mom told me to bring my violin in. So I brought my violin in, and I played, what was it? My Heart Will, I think it was My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. That was like the big song at the time. I think I had to be like maybe 11, 10, something like that. And after I played, the students loved it. They actually gave me more respect. And then the teacher, he had me stay after class. He asked for my mom's home number, her work number, and he actually called her and he apologized. Wow. And by the time the report cards came out, my grade went from an F to an A, and he submitted me to Cleveland School of Arts. And so from there, my journey was, it was a journey, but that was the beginning story of me coming into the violin.
Now, I had to Google, I had to go to my best friend Google to truly understand the difference between a fiddle and a violin. But as I understand it, it's the same instrument,
Yes.
it's just what music
Yes,
it
yes,
plays.
yes.
So a violin plays classical,
Yep.
and a fiddle plays bluegrass
Yeah.
or country, or how would you label what you play?
So what I play a little bit of everything. I do play classical, of course, because I came up in school. We play classical music. I play R&B. I play hip hop, pop, country. I use a lot of techniques that you find that fiddlers play, which a lot of techniques they play is in classical music as well. But the fiddlers, they highlight this style a lot, where they do a lot of double stops. They play multiple strings as they play, and I take those techniques and I play them in my music, just like a voice. A singer is still a singer. But you got a blues singer, you got an R&B singer, you got a country singer. It's just really the style of music.
So you mentioned that, at first the drums interested you and that you dance. Do you play other instruments besides the fiddle?
So I do play the djembe, which is a West African drum that you play with your hands. And I do play the keys a little bit. I won't say I'm a pianist, but since I'm a producer and a sound engineer, I do play the keys because we use MIDI keyboards to create music. Me and my wife play the healing singing bowls and different things of that nature, but I'm mostly a violinist and a vocalist and a producer.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So you do sing.
Yes.
So if you had to choose between singing and playing the fiddle, which one would you choose?
It would be hard. Because
is that like asking you to choose between two kids?
Yeah, it would be hard because just to understand, art imitates life. So the first instrument was actually the drum, because the drum imitates the heartbeat. The heartbeat, once that beat stops beating, you're gone. And then from there, the skin of the drum shredded. And once our ancestors rolled their fingers across the different tightness of the shreds, it played melodies. That's where the harp comes from. And then we imitated those melodies with our voice to sing. So music is very powerful, and it's even more powerful when you add a voice to it to add a message. So it would be hard for me to separate it because my voice is how I'm able to vocal my message and my purpose.
Now, let me ask you, as I mentioned in the intro, your energy on stage, is infectious. How you jump up and down and play at the same time. I'm going to ask you about that. But when you started out, does it just come out of what you're playing, or do you start out saying, I'm going to move a lot and I'm going to show a lot of energy, or does it just come out?
It just comes out that way. Well, I used to weigh 300-something pounds years ago, but then I got really slim and did the P90X thing, and just got really hype. I just came back from an injury to my back last year. I couldn't even walk for 4 months.
Now, was the injury at all related to your playing?
I think it was a mixture of just me doing too much on the workout side. Okay. And I injured myself, so now I'm back and getting back in shape and things of that nature. But it's hard for me not to move around and jump. Even what you all saw at the performance, that was 50% of what I usually do. Usually I'll jump off stage and stuff like that. But now I have to keep in mind that, okay, you're healing, don't re-injure yourself. But it's just a part of me, it's a part of my ancestry. If you look at my people as being indigenous, Native American, and being African ancestry, we have a high energy, spiritual balance when it comes to our music. We've always taught our culture through song, dance, and festive. So that's how I know that I can engage with the crowd and I can engage with everyone that's there, because I want to give them something to feed off of so they can give me something to feed off of.
That is especially true, as a communication coach. The indigenous culture didn't have a written language, so everything they passed down, right, was verbally, whether it was in word or song.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And that's what it was. That's how we learned our traditions. That's why music and entertainment and art is so important, because what it does is it really helps raise the youth, while everyone's at work and their kids is at school, they're really getting raised by the messages and the things that's put through the music and entertainment.
Wow, which is a whole nother topic about what
Yes,
they are
yes.
listening to, right? As
Yes,
they're
yes,
getting
yes.
raised by that music.
Yes, yes.
But you mentioned when we were talking, is there a difference between, and what is the difference between a musician and a performer?
Okay, so a musician is someone who, which you know, is a musician. You could say is someone who creates music. So I consider someone who makes beats on their computer or someone who DJs on a DJ board a musician as well, because through the technique and that technology they use makes them a musician. But then when you come to instruments, a musician understands how music sonically feels to someone when they hear it. And a musician practices that daily. They have to have that skill. Now, a performer, on the other hand, is someone who their main focus is to entertain you. You know, and I think some of the greatest performers that we've ever had are great musicians as well. If you look at someone like Prince, if you look at someone like Michael Jackson.
Can you be the opposite then? Can you be a great musician and not a great performer?
Absolutely.
'Cause
Absolutely.
I was early in her career. I saw Whitney Houston, may she rest in peace.
Yes, yes,
And it
yes,
was
the
after
voice.
she had done this Pepsi commercial. And I went to see her, and that was not the same Whitney Houston as I saw in the Pepsi commercial.
Right, right.
I didn't see this bold, confident performer. So can you talk to us about what does it take to be that performer, to entertain?
It comes to practicing. Because I tell people, you have studio artists, you have performance artists. You have people who sound great in the studio, and you have people who sound great on stage, but just because you sound great on stage doesn't mean you're entertaining. Whitney Houston, like so many others who were thrown in the music industry young, she got better with time with her performance. But then you could take someone like Whitney Houston, who's the voice, I believe one of the greatest voices we ever had. You know, and I just want to stick with the women because I don't want to compare her to a male artist. But then you could take someone like Janet Jackson, who's not the greatest vocalist, but she's a phenomenal performer. You know, she's the blueprint when it comes to performances of female artists today.
So before we ask you to perform, I'm going to ask you, could you name one favorite female recording artist, or not recording artist, but performing artist, and one favorite male, one favorite female, or two favorite males, two favorite females, whatever you want.
We'll do two.
Okay.
Okay, man. My goodness. So we're talking about performance.
Performance.
Janet Jackson,
Okay.
of course. Performance-wise, I would have to go Janet and Beyonce. To me, those are performance-wise. Beyonce is a great vocalist as well. And Janet is as well in her own right. But performance-wise, I would say them too. Voice-wise, I just had to go there. Voice-wise, I would say Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, and Mariah Carey. And then when it comes to male performers, Michael Jackson. He's at the top. Prince, and just one more, Bob Marley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
Oh, yes, I loved it. It was too short, but that's okay because it still was great. He deserved. I think they should make a series of just the whole Marley empire and the Wailers and the children and their lives and everything.
Now, the really important question, have you seen the Netflix The Greatest Night in Pop Music?
The Greatest Night in Pop Music? No, what's that?
We'll talk.
Okay. I have to definitely see that.
Yes.
Yes.
At this time, I would like to introduce our guest today, Humble G, the Fiddla, who is going to play his fiddle, which we've learned today is a violin, just used with different music, to play different music, and we are going to have the pleasure of hearing Humble G, the Fiddla. Humble da Fiddla. As I mentioned, we have Notorious and we have, Ludacris. We have other names. I'm going to guess perhaps you were not born with the name Humble?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't born with the name Humble.
So how did you pick, as you went to pick a name, why did you pick Humble?
The reason it actually was given to me. So.
See, I kind of think that way about nicknames. Like, I always wanted a nickname, but you can't give yourself a nickname. Right? Life has to give it to you. So did life gave you?
Yes,
Humble?
that's what happened. My mom always kept, she always kept mentors in my life. So at the time, I was working with a company, Global Entertainment, and there was some brothers that I was working with, and one of them, who was my producer at the time, Mick Beats, he gave me the name. He was like, you know what, you're really a humble dude because you do all these different things. You rap, you sing, you play the violin, you produce. I think that should be your name. And I think it would be great for you. It would keep you humble. And so from there, it was everyone in the hood, they called me G. What's up, G? So then it turned from G to Humble G. And the G was like, I'm just a humble guy. And then everyone was calling me the Fiddla. Yeah, the Fiddla. So then I went Humble G, the Fiddla. And then later on, I added the RSVP, which is an acronym for rapper, singer, violinist, producer, which is an album I'm actually working on right now as well. Been in the studio with some legendary people. Shout out to the legendary Boosie Collins from the Funkadelics. So I'm very excited about this album that's coming.
So when you think about your performances, is there one performance that stands out that you feel represented you the best, or that you enjoyed the most, or for whatever reasons, the gods aligned that particular performance?
Yes, I would say there's actually two. One is back when I was very, very young. I was just old.
Versus now when you're so old?
right. Where I was just old enough to vote. So put it that way. I was just at the age to vote. And it was back in 2008 with President Barack Obama. He was running, and I had to choose because Hillary wanted me and Obama wanted me. Hillary was paying, but I was all for the cause. Rest in peace, Silver B. Richards, who was a legend here in entertainment. He was able to get me on that stage, and I was able to take a picture with Obama holding up my CD at the time. And he said, you only hold it up if I'm not cursing on it. I said, I'm not. And just that picture and that moment in time has just become more historical and a big part of history. And for me, and I was his first entertainment he had ever had on his campaign. So it was almost like we kicked it off. That was
that was here in Cleveland?
That was here in Cleveland, yeah, Tri-C Eastern Campus. He was running to be the represent the Democratic Party. And then recently, all the stars aligned. I was able to connect with the legendary Boosie Collins, from the Funkadelics band and Parliament Funkadelics. And he was performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he was looking for a musician who can represent his Funk Not Fight movement, this is exactly what he was looking for. He said, I need a young musician who can play and who can rap and who can sing. And so I was reached out to by The Village, Truth and Vision, which is a partnership I have with my nonprofit, and they connected me with Boosie Collins. We were on stage. I got to play for him, and he bowed to me on stage. That was just so. I'm like, wow, this is the legendary Boosie Collins. So that right there will always sit in my heart space.
Now, I also saw that you were part of the Football Hall of Fame fashion show.
Yes,
where you were on the stage.
Yes.
I don't know if people can realize, if you haven't been there, how many thousands of people are at that, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so the models are walking past you and you're playing.
Yeah. It was a wonderful moment. It was they brought me on as the feature entertainment. I've done a few events up there with a group called Authentica, and from there, one of the board members just was like, "Hey, we want to have entertainment this year. I say we book Humble G," and from there they booked me, and it was a wonderful experience, and it's great on my resume. So
sure.
The Enshrinement Week, gold
anything
jacket.
On Enshrinement, right? Week is good. Is good for your resume.
Yes.
Now, when I was a little girl, as I said, I have not a musical bone in my body, but my mother made me take piano lessons, which did not go well because I wouldn't practice in between.
Right.
So would you give our audience an idea? You know, they see you playing and it looks like you're enjoying it so much, you know, the audience, but give us some idea of the time or the sacrifice involved, because though I didn't do well with the piano, I showed horses for a long time, and there's so much sacrifice that you say no to other things with your friends, with other things, right?
Yes.
Give us an idea of the time it takes to be able to get on the stage and play it like it's nothing.
You know, I've been doing this for the majority of my life. Like I said, I started around 11. It's just like when an athlete plays basketball. When they're young, they're putting a lot of hard work in. That's why I always tell people, get into something while you're young, because it'll be fun. Because as you get older, now, you know, your schedule gets tight. Now you have to practice. When I was young, it didn't really feel like practice. It was just fun. It was my passion. I didn't know I was primarily self-taught till I played with the Cleveland Suburban Orchestra. And the conductor was like, I was the youngest there. Everyone there was about 60 years old and older. I had to be about 17. And he was like, you play so well, who's your teacher? I'm like, I play at school. He said, you know, playing a classical instrument, you're supposed to have a private lesson teacher. And I was like, well, I don't have one. He said, well, that makes you primarily taught. I said,
so
I didn't know that.
Does that make you a child prodigy? Are you considered a child prodigy?
I have been told that, you know, and God has blessed me. Like my great-grandfather, Grandpa Champ, he told me your gift will take you around the world. And one thing I want to speak to that, I played at Ginn Academy for their graduation. And a gentleman by the name of Albert Ratner here in Ohio, he saw me, he met with me, he loved me, and he wound up having me audition in front of some people at the Cleveland Orchestra, all these different people. He said, because I can get you in school. He said, I don't understand music. I can get you in school, but these people have to let me know if you're good enough. They loved me. I wound up playing for Dr. Jules Smirnoff, who was the president at the time of CIM, and he actually has a Grammy with Tony Bennett. And he heard me playing, he loved it, and he was like, you know what? They're not going to understand you here at Cleveland Institute of Music, but we're going to have you here, and I'm going to teach you personally. So he taught me personally for a few years, and we still have a beautiful relationship to this day. We're actually working on some music collaborations to this day. So it's about the grace of God. You know, I would have never been able to afford an education at Cleveland Institute of Music, you know, and I knew the type of sacrifice it would take to just focus on classical. But just going the path that God had set for me, I was able to, you know, be blessed with this wonderful opportunity.
Now, in the minute or two I have remaining, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and ask for very short answers.
Okay.
Who would you most like to be compared to in the music world?
Ooh. Michael Jackson and Kanye West.
What or who inspires you?
God, Most High, my family, my mother, my wife, my children, my grandmother, yeah.
Now, in the Greatest Night in Pop, they're recording We Are the World, and in the middle of the night, they get chicken and waffles, okay, which I just can't understand how someone can sing after chicken and waffles, but do you have a meal that you eat before you perform?
I really don't like to eat before I perform. I can't.
Which why, it was like, I couldn't understand them performing on chicken and waffles. Yeah. Do you have a favorite binge on Netflix or on any of the platforms?
Whew. I would say The Witcher.
Okay.
I love the Witcher series, yeah.
Okay. And where can we hear or see Humble G the Fiddler?
Okay, well, you can Google me, Humble G. You know, I'm on so many platforms. You can see me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, any of those. But if you Google me, Humble G the Fiddler, you'll be able to find things that I got going on and what I'm working on, and you can hear my music. Now,
if I walked out to your car with you, who would I hear playing when you started up your car? Once you find your key fob, who would I find? Who would I hear you listening to?
Who you hear me listening to? Well, right now it would probably be a podcast. I like to listen to a lot of information, and I've been listening to Yakita Awaken and the importance of eating electrical foods. So I'm really big into health. So you'll probably hear a podcast going.
That's a great answer.
Yes.
It is said that music speaks what cannot be expressed, heals the heart, and makes it whole. We thank our guest today, Humble G the Fiddler, one of the jewels in Northeast Ohio, who speaks through his music, makes our hearts whole, and makes our feet dance. Like John Batiste, he seems to believe that human interaction during a live musical performance can uplift humanity. I'm Leslie Unger. Thank you for joining us on Forum 360 for our global outlook with a local view.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.